Yeah, so thank you for having me. In today's video, we're going to talk about basic Linux terminal commands. All right, so first things first, we're going to look at setting up the environment. This is going to apply to those who are on Windows. If you are on a Mac or Linux, you're already set up to execute your commands. If you're on a Windows computer, you want to set up a Linux or Unix-based system on your computer, right? So the first place you want to go, the first one is WSL, so Windows Subsystem for Linux. You want to go to this link here, install WSL Microsoft Learn. Click on that. It's going to show you the installation. So you open up your PowerShell. So on a Windows computer, search for PowerShell. All right, so you have this Windows PowerShell, and open that PowerShell. You will have this command terminal, which is a PowerShell PS. You can see here it says PS. So the first command is this one, WSL -- install. So you want to type this WSL -- install. I'm not going to be running through these commands because I already have WSL installed on my computer. All right, so this command will enable the features necessary to run WSL and install the Ubuntu distribution of Linux, and so that's what it's going to do. All right, so there are quite a number of distributions that you can use. You could use Ubuntu, you could use Kali Linux, Debian, Fedora. There are quite a lot that you can use, but in this instance you're going to be using Ubuntu. All right, after you run through the installation, if you open it, it will ask you to set up a username and a password. You could use your default username and password of your Windows system. You have to remember that username and the password so that when you want to execute certain commands, it will ask you for the password. Yeah, so you need to remember that password. And the second option is installing Git, G-I-T, download here. So you want to go to the first link, and then you want to download the installer that is suitable for your operating system. If you have a 32-bit or 64, click on that, run through the installation, and follow the instructions. Once you finish installation, you want to go here on all apps. Look for a folder called Git. It's here. Click on that downward arrow. You can see there's a Git bash. This is the one that you want to use. And so this one will allow you to execute commands, Unix or Linux like commands in here. So I can ls here. You can see I have that command working for me, and yeah, so basically this is what you want to do. And so you can use this as well. So those are the two options that you have. The third option is for you to install a virtual machine, of which it's beyond the scope of this tutorial. All right, so with that out of the way, we have installed everything and we are ready to learn. And so the first thing you need to understand is the Linux directory tree. All right, so on every Linux computer, there's a directory tree that you have to know. Directories are folders. Okay, so this is a folder tree. Similar with the Windows, you have the Explorer, right? The folders are organized in a tree-like structure. So that's the whole idea. So in Linux, you have this parent folder, which we call the root folder or the root directory, the root of the system. So you have this root represented by this /, and then you have other subdirectories inside it. And so you have the home, the dev, the etc, the var, the sr. You can see inside the home you have users. So every user that is created on that system, on the Linux system, they are in the home directory. And then you have the dev, and then you have the etc. We are not going to be touching on all these, but I want you to remember that in the home directory, this is where you have your users. And so you will find yourself in this directory here. The composition of the terminal. We're going to open our terminals. So for me, I'm going to search for terminal, and on terminal you can see this arrow here. So let me bring this so that you guys can see this arrow, downward arrow. Can press that. You can see I have Ubuntu. So if you have successfully installed WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, you have the version of Ubuntu here. Mine is 18.4, but yours could be 20 or whatever version. So click on that. It's going to give you access to a screen like this one. Or you might not have downloaded WSL. It's still okay. You can still use Git. So Git bash that one is still okay. You can open that as well. So you want to press Control plus 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 to zoom that. Similar with this one, Control plus 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 to zoom that. Well, for me, I'm going to be using this one. I'm not going to be using Git Bash, so it's all up to you. You can use this one or that one, depending on what you have. If you're on a Windows computer, if you are on a Mac, you already have the terminal, so just go to your terminal and open it up. Or if you're on a Linux, you have the terminal as well. All right, so here, you guys can see what we have here. This information, Martensson at Martensson MK, and then we have that tilde, and then we have the $sign. What does this all mean? So I'm going to break it down for you so that you can understand. So Martensson, this Martensson means the current user. This is my username. So when I created an account on my computer, I used this name as my username, and so that's the name that you're going to see. So if you have more than one user on your computer, depending on who is logged in currently, you will see their name here. So for me, it's Martensson, and for you, it could be different. It could be your name or any other name that you used when you created that account. And then moving on to the next one, Martensson MK. This is the host name of the computer. And so when I was running through the installation, I gave this computer a name called Martensson MK, and so that's the name. On your computer is different. You gave it a name, and that's the name that will appear here. So separated by a colon, there's a tilde and a $sign. The tilde shows us the current directory that we are in. I'm going to take you back to this directory system. And so like I said, it's home and then user. So it's going to be home Martensson here. So I'm on home. So from the root to home to user 1, user 2. So currently on my computer, I only have one user who is Martensson. So it's going to have home and then Martensson. And within Martensson, it's going to have a number of directories that I have access to. And so this is what we have over here. So this tilde tells me that I'm in home Martensson. This is the user who is currently using this computer, and so this could be your name. So this username here is going to be here. The dollar is a prompt symbol after which the user's keyboard input will appear, and so this is where you're going to start inputting the commands. All right, so taking you back, you can see Martensson is the username, the current username, the name of the computer, the host name. This shows us where we are, currently, and then after the $sign, we can start entering our commands. We have this user here, but we can have some other users here. So in Linux, we have 3 different kinds of users. I'm going to talk about 2 of those. The other one is beyond the scope of this tutorial. I'm going to talk about normal users, which is this Martensson here. This is just a normal user. We also have somebody who has got what we call elevated privileges. So this brings us to elevated privileges. So in Linux, the root user is the super user account, which is a special user account that can perform system-wide administrative functions. It is an unrestricted user that has permission to perform any task on a computer or on a server. All right, so where does this super user come from? Because when I created my Martensson account, I did not create any super user. Well, when you were creating this account, the Martensson account, the computer automatically creates the super user for you. All right, so you can have access to that super user. You might question me and say, on my Windows, I don't have any super user. Yes, you do. So if I'm to search here, let's say I want to open this terminal as a super user, I can right click and say run as administrator. This administrator is the super user on your account, right? So you have access to that super user. And so there are certain commands that you cannot execute if you are not the administrator. So you have to assume the role of an administrator or a super user, and then you can be able to execute those commands. All right, so how do we then change from this user to our super user? So in Linux, to take you here, it says sudo su or sudo -i or sudo -s. What does this sudo mean? It means super user do something. It's short for super user do. So we have to write it as sudo and then su. This is the first command which is going to make us administrators or super users. We have elevated privileges, we have powers, so we can execute anything. So whatever command that you're going to execute, after you write it down, you need to press enter on your keyboard. This will prompt me to enter the password, my own password. So this is the password that I used when I created this, so I'm going to enter that. As you guys can see, now I'm a root user. You can see here it says root. So you might be asking me, where did I get this password? When I set up this, I created this password, and that's the password that I'm using. And you might be asking, we did not see the password. Well, yeah, that's what it does. It does not show the password, but when you type it in, it knows that you have typed that password, and then when you press enter, it executes that. If the password is correct, and then it's going to give you this privilege. Now you're working as a root user. Okay, how else do I know that somebody is working as a root user? Apart from having the root as their username, I can also see this hash symbol. When I was working as a normal user, I had a $sign. But when I'm working as a root user, I have the hash symbol. So this is another, sign to say that now your account is in super user mode. All right. So what I want to emphasize is you don't always want to work as a super user, because some people might say, so if I can do anything, why can't I just work as a super user all the time? You don't want to do that, because when somebody hacks your computer, if you're working as a super user, they have control to everything, virtually everything. They can do anything. They can even delete your own account, this normal account. They have superpowers. They can do anything. So you don't want to do that. All right. So you want to work as a normal user. And when you are required to be a super user, then you can. So how then do we revert back to our normal user? We can just type exit here, and then we are back to our normal account. So super user do su is one way. We can also do sudo -i. It's another way. You can see now it says root, sets, and mk. But these, you can see there are subtle differences between these commands. This one shows me the path. This one shows me the tilde. Those are slight differences. You have to find out why these commands are different for yourself. There's also sudo -s is also going to make you a root user. You can see down here I'm a root user, but I can also exit this. All right, so I hope you guys can understand this concept that we have in Linux. So I'm going to write clear here. It's another command to clear my screen. So I'm going to press enter. It's going to clear everything and take me back there. All right, so having done all this, we know about users, we know about the Linux directory tree, and so we are virtually good to go. So in our next tutorial, I'm going to be introducing you to our first command, which is the pwd command. All right, so I don't want to make this too long, so that's why I'm cutting it here. So I hope to see you in our next tutorial. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll leave the resources to all this material in the description. So I hope to see you in our next tutorial. For now, I'm out. Bye bye.